attendance, but I'll start taking that down. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 meeting of the City of Revere Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. My name is Joe Grappellisi, Chair of the board. And we are having a virtual meeting today due to renovations in the City Council chamber. So because of that, this meeting is being held via Zoom and being recorded for record-keeping purposes. So we'll start just with the roll call with taking of attendance. So myself, I'm present. Vice Chair Claire Anzarello.
Present.
Treasurer Anayo Oswaki.
Present.
Layla Entry.
Yeah, present.
Dean Harris.
Present.
Matt Wolfer.
Present.
Lori Manzo.
Present.
I see that Deb Frank is not here. And then I think that is everybody. So, and I think Deb said that she was going to try to join in. And then I see that we have representation from the city, from Tom Skorowski. So with that, we'll start with the treasurer's update on finances. So we'll kick it over to you, Anayo.
Sure. Good evening. Happy New Year, everyone. This is the report, the current balance of the Affordable Housing Trust Committee. The current balance is $668,575.87.
Thank you very much. So for the next agenda item, I have update on first-time homebuyer program. I'm actually going to slightly amend that to also just be some general updates from the chair. So we're in the process of, as many of you know, Lorena Escalero moved on at the end of the towards the end of the calendar year to new opportunities for her, which is very exciting. Although we will miss her and her contributions. So Tom will be our connecting point from the city at this point. And it also means that I'm in the process of trying to take on some of the processing and communication with applicants to the first-time homebuyer program to get some of those funds out the door to folks that are eligible. We have eligible folks, and they're in their waiting window to get their purchase and sale agreement. And then at that point, we'd be able to expend the funds. And so I'll keep you all updated, but I'm just trying to pick up, where Lorena left off with tracking eligibility, communicating with applicants, etc. So that is ongoing, and I anticipate having more updates for you on that, as we move forward. The other major update from my corner, and you all noticed this via a batch of emails that you got from me all at the same time. So apologies if they were overwhelming or it was a bunch of calendar invitations, but in conjunction with Claire, to make sure that we are absolutely on top of public records and our agenda items and tracking everything and being on top of next steps. We set up just a regular workflow that we're going to use to get our agenda items on the board, get the agenda posted, get the minutes posted, and assign follow-ups. And so those are those calendar invitations that you received from me, where we're going to be consistent each month with when the call goes out for agenda items. We're certainly asking and hoping that folks will bring agenda items to the table, whether that be types of projects that you're interested in us undertaking, things that you think we should study, educational opportunities for us to learn more, please do. But then also it's to hold ourselves accountable as board members and as officers of the board of, getting agendas and minutes, etc., done in a timely manner. So hopefully that was not confusing, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Any questions on any of that before I turn it over to Tom for some of the updates from the city side?
No.
All right, so I see you have Tom, who I think is reporting live from a parked car, the magic of these virtual meetings, with updates on a few of city initiatives that touch our work.
Thanks, Joe. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great.
Yes.
So I'll actually start with the housing production plan, which many of you were on our advisory committee to help put this plan together and have been listening along in a lot of the work and progress of that working group in conjunction with the work that J.M. Goldson have been doing with the Affordable Housing Trust. I appreciate everyone's support. So in November, it was first presented to the council, the housing production plan, and then was referred to the council as a whole committee, which is basically just a fancy way of saying a meeting of the full city council where it's sort of the only item on the agenda. And so we did that just before the holiday break. And I presented the plan and kind of walked through what it is and what it isn't. The last piece being particularly important because there was some flyers that went out into the community that gave indications that any vote taken on the plan would lead to sweeping changes in our zoning code and some other, I'll say somewhat misinformation about what was going to happen if this plan was approved. And you know, it was really well received by the council, and I think they understand full well that what this plan is going to do is provide the city with a toolbox of different strategies that we might want to employ to build the right kind of housing in the right locations across the income spectrums, both deed restricted affordable, but also workforce housing that might not be deed restricted, but is affordable to working people. And you know, it was pretty well received, and it will go to another council as a whole committee meeting later, hopefully later in January, perhaps early February. It's a bit premature to say because there'll be a new election of officers for the Revere City Council, I think on Monday of next week, and the new council president will set the agenda for all of that moving forward. But we'll be meeting soon, and hopefully they'll be voting to adopt the plan, which the planning board unanimously voted to do so in November. And at that meeting, they'll also be talking about the Housing Development Incentive Program, otherwise known as HDIP, which is a tool we'll be hopefully using to drive investment both in Suffolk Downs and the two 40R smart growth districts that we created in Shirley Avenue and the Lee Trailer Park area, with the intent to encourage affordable housing development. It's kind of a flexible zoning tool. I should say that the 40R is a flexible zoning tool. HDIP is a flexible financing tool that can provide local tax agreements and a state tax credit that can be quite lucrative to help support and drive housing production. And so all that's going to go to the council pretty soon. And I left the RFP question at the end because that is something we're going to leave off the table until there's votes on the housing production plan and HDIP to muddy the water and just kind of focus on one thing at a time. Those two key agenda items, and then that'll be the next one up. So whenever the housing production plan and HDIP are approved, we'll then get into the disposition of those properties, you know, with the intent being to hand them over to the Affordable Housing Trust, then to, through RFP, look to find opportunities for affordable housing production at those sites. So those are my updates for now. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Tom. So my main question would be, and this may be, the answer to this may be hold off because it's just we want to take care of a couple things at a time. But as we build up towards actually moving forward in the RFP process, what kind of guidance might be helpful from trust members in terms of kind of visioning or prioritization of what we're trying to do with the disposition of those properties? Can people hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
Joe, I can hear you fine. I'm having a nice conversation with myself in the parked car because I had it stuck on mute. But yeah, it was a good question. Sorry about that.
I rendered you speechless.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think with regard to the trust goals with this RFP process, I would encourage, I guess more than anything, really to keep an open mind to think about how this could be used as a tool to support the trust, in that each site that we're looking at might benefit the trust and benefit affordable housing in Revere differently. So there might be some sites that work really well for affordable housing production. And there might be others that would actually be better selling to the highest price and using the proceeds of that sale to help support the trust activities in other ways. So and we might also look at opportunities where maybe a developer will want to come in and do a few different sites, and maybe one of them will be market rate, but the proceeds from that could drive affordable housing production on another site. I think I would definitely recommend, when you're putting the RFP together, to ensure that affordability is front and center of the criteria you use to select somebody. But also that, you're making sure whomever we select is somebody who has the capability and the capital to get a project done, and ultimately will lead to outcomes that will benefit the trust and affordability in Revere more generally, either through direct provision of affordable housing units, or through proceeds that the trust could then expand their activities with.
Thank you for that. It's helpful background. Does anyone else have questions about that? I appreciate everyone's patience, because I know that I feel like every month my update on this is next month we should have more. But just a few things kind of got stacked up towards the end of the year, as they tend to do, and we want to make sure that the HDIP and housing production plan is getting across the finish line. But this is going to be a key opportunity for us. Another thing that I would add, and just Tom can tap in if he wants to add anything to this, is we're going to continue to be I'm in communication with Tom, and we're in communication about as opportunities present themselves, as potential new development opportunities are kind of moving forward in Revere, we do have some flexibility, and it'll be kind of up to us as to whether we want to expend. We have a little bit of extra money, right, that it looks like, after we kind of account for the first-time home buyer program, to do, to provide some additional support for affordability for something this year. And it's kind of up to us to think about, do we want to solicit ideas to kind of, we always are listening, right? Because we've had, for instance, neighborhood developers came to us and talked about a potential ask, which they've not made an ask to us, but they might, around 110 Ocean Ave, or there's others, that may come to us that have, like Habitat had come and asked about receiving some funding. But then there's also the possibility of, we know that we're coming up on a new fiscal year, and there's going to be a free cash allocation that comes into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We don't know how much it's going to be. It's the same percentage, the 10% of the free cash allocation, but we don't know what the total free cash is. And, I don't think it's appropriate for us to speculate. But then we'll have a little bit more, right? And so we can think about something larger, and that could be, kind of going back to what we did last year, which is what's a process that gets us to the most financially efficient way to do a home ownership type subsidy project, right? So there's different ways that we can consider using the funds that we have. And, Tom knows, and there's an open line of communication that, as folks are coming before the city, if there's a way to encourage affordability and we can be a part of that recipe, we're happy to do so. And Tom, I don't know if there's anything else that, makes sense to talk about when it comes to that, but just, we're always looking out for folks' ideas, and also happy to listen to ideas if people have them.
Nope, nothing to add on my end.
Great. Anyone have any questions about that? Terrific. Well, with that, I think I mentioned, I have kind of a big agenda item area for sort of future planning, because I think we want to build off of, as I mentioned, having this workflow in place of having agenda items and really trying to have kind of structured meetings. And I think part of these structured meetings will include bringing back some of these sort of educational type sessions that we did to help learn more about different opportunities that there are for us to support initiatives in the community. One that I definitely want to do, but I think is a bit on pause because Laura Christopher at Mass Development is on a well-deserved maternity leave, and we're very excited for her. is working with some of the folks in the community that are trying to explore the possibility of starting a community land trust, which is something we talked about. And my hope is that once we're able to do that, we can have someone from the community land trust come and present and talk about some of the work they're doing in ways there may be for us to collaborate with them. We've had TND. I think, Dean, it would be great to just hear an update from your end, from your team on, even if there's not a specific nexus with the trust and our funds, some of the modernization work and things that are happening at Revere Housing Authority. I'm not asking you to do it off the cuff now, but like maybe at the next meeting, we can.
There's
Go
some
ahead.
happening now if you'd like to hear, but I mean,
Yeah, I would love to hear it. Yeah.
so currently we have there's two main focuses that we have right now, and that's the Coolidge Street Constitution area where we have an RFS, it's delayed a little bit by the state. We were supposed to get bids from architects and engineers to come up with a master plan for the about 40 acres worth of land over there to redevelop that portion of public housing to add workforce units and market rate units and redo those public housing units on that Coolidge Constitution, Adams Court, Proctor and Cushman sites. It's for about $350,000. The date's been pushed back for designer selection to I think the 22nd of January. So we're looking for a huge redevelopment of that area. And again, that's just for the master plan that'll form the blueprint of the development that'll happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years there. And then short-term wise, we have an application in with EOHLC to convert 110, 112 Shirley Ave. There's 2 3-family buildings there, which has 2 2-bedroom units and 4 3-bedroom units, and add a 5 to 6 story building in that place, much in line with what's being built on Shirley Ave. But to subsidize it with project basing some of our Section 8 vouchers, and to create somewhere between 20 and 40 units right now. We have an engineer designer that's submitting. I just met with them today. 3 different proposals for myself and my team to look at, and then we'll make a recommendation to the board of directors and kind of what area we think we should go in, and then we'll be looking for backing from EOHLC in developing that parcel of land over there. So those are the 2 things that are on our plate right now. Tom's been part of it every step of the way with us. And so we look forward to bring those to fruition.
That's all really exciting. And obviously always happy to take the time to learn more, figure out if there's ways that we can work together or in partnership. But while we have everyone, does anyone have questions about what's happening with the Housing Authority? Obviously there's a lot going on, and it's a chance to have that conversation for sure. I see, Laura, you got your hand up. Feel free to unmute.
Hi. So the question that I had really quickly is, as far as the updates to the siding and the roofing and stuff like that for the Constitution, Coolidge Street area, do we know if that is still something that is in the works, or if it had been pushed off because of funding or because of the weather?
I'm not sure of the question with that. I don't know what that.
I apologize. I had been, because we were talking about the improvements to the buildings around here on Constitution and Coolidge and stuff like that. And that question popped in my head. So that's why I asked.
No, what's the question though? We were talking about the master plan, and are you asking if your house is going to be sided in the future?
was asking if it was still planned out, or if there's delays because of the weather and or because of funding, because I know that we had discussed before, like a while ago, that it was supposed to happen, but then there was a whole mess of everything. So I just wanted to double check and see if those modernizations, those safety precautions, or whatever you would like to say.
So capital improvement projects go forward as funding is allowed. So the housing authority gets $900,000 a year on the state side, and that goes to fund capital projects through the 300 units at Coolidge Constitution, the 6-story building, the 100 units at Liston Towers, the 40 units at Adams Court, the 40 units at Project Cushman, the 26 families, or so in the Shirley Ave area, the 50 units at Garfield and Elliott. And it costs about $150,000 to side, window, and roof a building in Coolidge Constitution area for a gang of 4. So that you're limited in 5-6 buildings a year if you were to reside them. So it's a slow process. So
Yes, absolutely. That's why I was when he mentioned, when it was brought up, it popped in my head to ask about it. Just to clarify for people who might be watching at home that live around in these units, that it is still in the works of being done, but there is a process. So thank you so much for being willing to explain.
okay.
Yeah, so I think moving forward, as the as these modernizations continue, if there's an opportunity for some of what we do to have a nexus with supporting some of this like mixed income development, we'd love to have the conversation. So let's make sure to find a time to keep these updates coming. Does anyone else have questions about the RHA properties and some of the work that's happening with them? Okay. Then I wanted to throw out a couple of other things that I want us to get started on, just because we talked about adding some structure and to what we do, and kind of now that we're a little bit more experienced and kind of know the flow of things. And I would really love to revisit the idea that we had talked about of having some subcommittees to help kind of steer and guide some of the specific types of work that we've made priorities. There's 2 that I want to bubble up to the surface right away, but then there might be some others that people want to talk about, but there's 2 that I want to talk about. One is with regards to fundraising. So there are a number of sort of foundation funders and grants and things that may be interested in supporting the work that we do. And I think that we should explore, how we might be able to access that. And then there's also opportunities to do private fundraising, much in the way that like the scholarship committee has done, of kind of doing just fundraisers in the community. Anayo, I think you have no choice but to be a part of this subcommittee if we form it as the treasurer. But if there's 1 or 2 other people, and I'll do it as well, but have a particular interest in that piece of our work, I think it makes sense to have monthly check-ins in between meetings and just really focus on and report back on. Let's take some concrete steps to see what kind of funding might be out there to supplement what we're getting from free cash. So if that's of particular interest to 1 or 2 people and they want to throw their hat in, and then before you jump at that, the other one that I want to get established is one that's really focused on, I know we all do this, but just sort of in a standardized way, exploring costs, I suppose, of affordable home ownership opportunities. So like if we were to do another subsidy like we did, Where the last one that we did is we had the opportunity to do a per unit subsidy as part of like that larger condo redevelopment, and that's how the route that we chose. But if you remember, we kind of looked through a lot of different options. Like we looked at, does it make sense to try to buy a home that's on the market that, you know, maybe needs some TLC, and do we want to like purchase that and resell it, you know, at a affordable rate and subsidize essentially the difference between that and like the market cost, like that being a possibility for us, or you know, a unit in a condo building or a full condo building, and you know, utilize like so it's basically scanning the market and opportunities that exist, maybe having, and I think Matt had talked about this, like opening communication with brokers, realtors, you know, folks that might be able to give us some insight into this. And then also just comparing that with like, what are the other tools that we have at our disposal that we can do similar kind of small scale home ownership projects, whether that be a Habitat for Humanity type model, you know, not necessarily using them, but like doing something similar to what they do. I know this is kind of broad and vague, but I think that, you know, so a few people with a particular focus on having a report out on just like, here's what it would cost to do 1 or 2 units of like small scale affordable home ownership, and here are different options, and presenting them, even if they're things that frankly we probably, oh, we have a cat joining us, that we probably can't afford right now, right? But if we were to, like, just to know aspirationally that these are opportunities that exist out there. So those are 2 subcommittees that I'd love to like form and have in at least kind of formative conversations on between now and the next meeting. And I would love to know if folks are interested in leaning in, you know, and focusing on one of those areas.
Yeah, I think both are really cool. Obviously, the fundraising, I'd like to be a part of that one, and yeah, excited to get started. I'd also probably add in maybe including some of the options you mentioned. Maybe we can explore some grant writing opportunities as well to kind of buttress some of the options you mentioned. But yeah, I would like to get part of the fundraising committee.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, they both sound very interesting, and I'd be up for either of them, and I think I definitely can like bring some kind of either valuable skill set on the latter committee, some network reach on the former committee. So yeah, happy to take part in either or both.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be needed for everything. But I think, you know, Matt, I'd love to have you kind of run point with me on just that first conversation that we have on the exploring kind of home ownership and the market side of things, and an IO on fundraising and grant writing, and we'll get like appropriate city staff involved in it. Are there others that have a particular interest in one of those 2 areas? You know, where you'd want to just kind of get into some of this planning process that we do in between meetings?
Yeah, I'd like to participate in the home ownership part. I thought that was a great bang for our buck. I think that being able to help subsidize a family or a person into a unit for $250,000, about that, in this climate is a great thing. So I'd like to investigate that further.
I'll write that down.
I'm happy to join with Matthew and Dean, just because I'd like to stay away from fundraising in my official
Sure.
capacity as a city employee,
fair.
but I'm happy to give ideas there too, and more just in all honesty to learn from Matt and Dean, because I don't know a lot about the home ownership market. So I'd like to try to lend my skills and also learn at the same time a little more.
Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate the volunteering. So we're gonna cap that there because we can't have more than half of the members on part of any conversation due to making sure that we're in compliance and meeting laws.
If I cut Lori off and she wanted that subcommittee, I'm happy to see that to her also, because I think I heard her
no,
talk
no.
right when I started.
No, I was going to say that I would be interested in the fundraising aspect, trying to find out what avenues we can work with, because the more help we have, the more help we can provide. So
That's awesome, Laura. I'd love to get started with you. Thanks. That'd be an exciting opportunity.
Awesome. So we've got
Okay, For myself, okay, either both.
Okay. I'll probably pull
Okay.
you into fundraising for now, but I think also we should look at, let's get these started and see how it goes, this kind of process of reporting out. And if we find that it's not too much of a burden, I don't want to burden anyone, you all carve out this time every month and I appreciate that. But if we think that we have the
I,
capacity,
I feel like a sports team and needing to recruit. I'm going out and trying to get some free agents here. So
yeah,
Layla, feel free to join the team.
absolutely. We love that. Um, Terrific. Okay, so be on the lookout for communication from me about kind of convening those conversations in the next couple weeks and kind of doing them regularly in between meetings. Like I said, I know our biggest next project has been on hold for months, which is this RFP process, and I appreciate everyone's patience because I think since like August, September, it's been we're getting it ready, we're getting it ready, we're getting it ready. But this is going to be a really exciting opportunity for us to do, some sort of small scale but impactful affordable housing opportunities. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about getting these subcommittees going and having some of these educational sessions. So any questions about any of that? None. Does anyone have any additional items or things they wanted to add on to their announcements or things for the agenda?
I had a very quick question. As far as finding out or maybe communicating with other communities that have the trust fund committees as well to find out kind of what they do
Yeah.
or how they get their funding in or what they're putting their funding towards. Would that be something that we are allowed to do, or
Not
is
only
that
allowed,
not?
it's encouraged, and I think it's a good time to do it again. So we did it a lot at the beginning, and so Laura, you weren't here as part of this, but we had folks from Chelsea, we had some folks from the state, I think Salem, we had a few kind of reports in, but this would be a good time to do another one, because it's been a couple of years since we got this started. So I think that's a really good idea. The other thing that I want to make sure to do, and particularly for our newer members that joined, and please let me know if you didn't receive this, but we received at the beginning, and I think I sent it to new members, but maybe it's a good time for a refresher too for everybody. We got some state materials that sort of helped outline from Mass Housing, like what an affordable housing trust is and what we're allowed to do, and what are examples of things that have been done. I will say that the gleaning examples that they give are generally ones that have been done by trusts that have dedicated sources of revenue that allow them to do things like put, $1.2 million into a development project to turn it from, like a purely market rate project to a mixed income. Like we don't have those kinds of funds at our disposal, but it's good to have that inspiration, right? To see what or like purchasing and building 3 units of affordable housing on a city owned lot or something like that. Like different things that are a little bit outside our scope now, but still good to know about. We certainly hope that we'll be able to build up our revenue both from city sources and from elsewhere. So thank you for that. And we should definitely make kind of hearing from one of our bigger and more experienced counterparts one of our kind of educational sessions moving forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you as well.
Yeah. Other questions or additional items from folks?
I can quickly flag the city, not that this is something that we're choosing to do as heroes, but we kind of are forced to do it and we're happy to do so. We're coming into compliance with the Affordable Homes Act, which goes into effect next month. So maybe some zoning changes and a couple other things will be coming up within the next month or so to get us into compliance with some of the requirements for single family homes and expanding rental opportunities and stuff like that. So more changes to come with the already mountain of changes that Tom is juggling.
He's doing a great job of it. We appreciate the work he's doing, particularly down an additional person. So we appreciate that. Other items, questions? If not, expect communication from me at the schedule that we outlined. About keeping those minutes flowing and follow-up items. And we'll make those follow-up items really be getting those subcommittees going, right? And beginning to dig our teeth into, now that we're into 2025, how can we really push those two areas forward as priorities for us? So excited for that. With that, unless anyone has anything else, I'll put forward a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any objection? None. All right. Well, thank you all for your flexibility today of doing this meeting remotely. I know that's very convenient for some, not convenient at all for others, depending on your setup. Super convenient for the cat, which we appreciate. And I look forward to seeing you all in person in 1 month and being in touch between now and then.
Just to
Thanks,
clarify,
everyone.
sorry, just to clarify, our next meeting is set for what date?
It's February 12th. So this our usual second Wednesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. But this will be back at City Hall in the council chambers, unless there's some sort of issue with the chamber that happens between now and then, which we do not anticipate. But if that happens, we'll let everybody know.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Take
Good night,
care.
everybody.
Everyone.